Father Leo Agunzadi. At the moment, he's now in MANRESA. Currently, he lives in Collegio International the Jesuit in Rome as a spiritual director for Jesuit scholastics. He was born in Indonesia. He entered the Society of Jesus in 1986. He has worked in rural Jesuit parish in Indonesia, in Jesuit formation, as associate and novice director. He studied spirituality following the licentiate program on spirituality in Universidad Pontificia Comillas de Madrid. And he finished his doctorate on spirituality, also done in Comillas University. He has also written books on Ignatian spirituality and given Ignatian courses in Indonesia. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sally. Muchas gracias a todos, hermanas, hermanos.
Thank you to all brothers and sisters. I have prepared my presentations in English, but I would like to start with a story that took place 6 years ago related to the pilgrimage. And I would like to mention, if you allow me to do so, Father Pedro Molina. In an academic room, he asked me, or maybe he provoked me with a question. He told me, Leo, my name is Leo, I did my pilgrimage, but it really was not useful for me. And the second provocation was, Leo, you say that pilgrimage is an important test of the novitiate, but why all novitiates apply this pilgrimage? Why novices do this pilgrimage? So these questions made me think a lot, and still make me think today. So my presentation is here to understand Diego, because the pilgrimage, I think it's very useful. So that's why what I'm gonna try to explain.
Slide.
I will start with slide.
Let us have a look these words. I try to summarize all my presentation with this word: unexpected experience. MANRESA experience is unexpected experience. And what happened in MANRESA, we all know. And Padre Luis Magrina menciona en su introducción lo importante de la experiencia MANRESA.
Father Luis Magrina says how it's important, the experience in MANRESA and the internal or the inner knowledge. Thank you.
That produce great spirit. Let us remember annotation 5. Then walking. Actually, what I am about to present, we already practice every day in our morning prayer. Then the whole of me, with all our capacity, silent, encounter and interior movement. Here I have friend Pablo Marte, he writes a thesis on interior knowledge. So I like said to him, when we meet Pablo that produce interior knowledge is pilgrimage, interior movement. The second slide. San Ignatius called himself pilgrim. There was a story, Camara asked Ignatius how was important the pilgrimage experience in Ignatius, and he answered by referring the experience in MANRESA. And the second, pilgrimage is one of the three fundamental experience for novices. The other two is hospital and spiritual exercises. That's interesting. One is also the third number, spiritual exercises, fruit of Ignatius pilgrimage. At the beginning, pilgrimage is spiritual exercises that Ignatius chose to express his conversion, but in the end, generated spiritual text, spiritual exercises text. And then the history in Phoenicia, the first fathers were walking from Paris to Phoenicia. I interpreted this, they were trained by exercise, spiritual exercises and pilgrimage. The last slide. In my presentation at the end, I show you pilgrimage is continuing contemplation to thin love. You should not agree with me, but we could imagine by remembering all God's gift, God dwell in creature, God work in the world, God is the source of all good things. The pilgrim refresh his awareness and affective memory of God and his gift along the way the pilgrim walk. So before I mention the importance of walking. Okay, now let me read my text slowly until my time finish. Yeah. Spiritual success and pilgrimage is way to God. Both of them are very clear in the Ignatius experience is way to God. And Ignatius wanted to share it among us. The transformative experience taught by God along his pilgrimage is recorded in the narrative story of autobiography. So in a certain sense, pedagogically, both spiritual exercises and story of Ignatius pilgrim serve a way to God. Una via quidam hacia Dios. For Ignatius, pilgrimage is school and God is master. And what is the subject's matter? The subject matter to learn or by which he learned along the way consists of many kinds of unexpected experience. Why I call MANRESA experience unexpected? Because he decided just to stay here a couple of days. And then what happened? 11 months. And many people who study spirituality, who study spiritual exercises, even studying the history of the society, the origin of the society, try to explore the experience of MANRESA. The subject matter is unexpected experience that broaden his horizon of meaning. Walking about along his pilgrimage was a kind of progressive awareness of God action. So if I'm interested with Father Luis Macrina mentioned interior knowledge in MANRESA, not because internal in itself, but it's internal knowledge exists as God action, God intervention. When we speak of the origin of the spiritual exercises, it is common for us to refer to early experiences of conversion, Loyola and MANRESA. In Loyola, St. Ignatius actualized his spirit conversion in a new plan of life to live solely for God's greater glory, but concretely by making pilgrimage. And in MANRESA, the second experience led Ignatius to deep sense of being sinner and be strong awareness of great dependence on God's grace. Father Ignacio Casanovas vividly described this MANRESA experience by pointing out the difference between Ignatius' life before and after MANRESA. It is said that was a great change, such that St. Ignatius found himself to be a new person. Using the image of carpenter, Casanova says that when he arrived at MANRESA from Montserrat, Ignatius was an inexperienced carpenter that didn't know yet how to beautify a work of art, although he knew already the main task. But after MANRESA, St. Ignatius was a grand and perfect artist with the sense of art permitting his intuition and his way of proceeding. So this description reminds us what Ignatius told to Camara, that he had not produced the exercises all at one time, but they were the fruit of gradual process of his experience and learning in pilgrimage. Consistently put, we know that the essence of the spiritual exercises as a way to God by underlining the aim, which is to overcome oneself and to order one's life. And the way to transform oneself coming to God is by understanding reality profoundly and in suffering it interiorly in doing exercise with great spirit and generosity. So we understand here that the way of spiritual exercises is to lead people to an encounter with God, not by lecture or reading, but by practice. And I also point pilgrimage as way to God. Following the all day that we passed already, and the topic is new language, I'm just thinking that actually pilgrimage is all language for exercise exercises, but still serve actual until now. Among devices idea to practice, the main and determining idea of pilgrimage is always movement from one place to another with a certain motive. That we did already every morning is try to practice praying in pilgrimage with a simple way. To make a pilgrim is to walk with the whole of me. The whole of me. It's mean with our body, with our spirit, with our memory, in which we are open to God's unexpected presence and intervention. First, pilgrimage refers to physical movement of the pilgrim, and secondly, it's the firm interior movement of the soul. So we know two ideas of pilgrimage, namely physical journey to some place and interior journey of soul to God. And we could remember the experience of Ignatius. When Ignatius decided to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, we call it a physical pilgrimage. But here in MANRESA, when he met the tradition of Benedictine tradition, also the book of Imitatio Christi, he began his interior pilgrimage, interior journey. To learn from Ignatius' experience to be called pilgrim refer to transformative and evolutionary power of encounter between oneself and God's graces on while pilgrimage and ultimately in one's life. I continue with the point on doing spiritual exercises through pilgrimage. I mentioned before that what I am about to say, we already practice at least 4 days in our morning prayer. It is evident that spiritual exercises through pilgrimage is about sensibility and docility to any kind of experience, including the unexpected experience. The experience of encounter become the dominant moment and become a learning subject. I underline this. Unexpected experience become the dominant moment and becomes a learning subject. The proper attitude for this kind of experience is respect and trust, acknowledging God's presence. In a society with its cultural and religious divides like Asia, for example, even Indonesia, my country, pilgrimage is a religious practice that provides a natural connection. For this reason and context, the Indonesian Jesuit province maintain pilgrimage as a specific experience in novitiate formation. For Indonesia, in terms of religious practice, pilgrimage is a familiar religious practice that can consolidate feeling of being Indonesian, highlighting the country aspiration toward unity and diversity. Now, I mentioned peculiarity of spiritual exercises through pilgrimage. And by peculiarity, I do not indicate the onlyness of pilgrimage, but just want to say that by pilgrimage, these experiences could be heaven. One point, unexpected experience and great spirit. One peculiarity lies in unexpected experience and great spirit. Pilgrimage allows many kind of unexpected experience by which the pilgrim learn great spirit, or we call it also generosity of the heart. Pilgrimage presupposes great spirit, but at the same time, the unexpected experience expand the great spirit. In the spiritual exercises, we know that the great spirit is the spiritual attitude most needed to begin doing any exercise. It will be quite possible that in an ongoing exercises, God's will could be different from what we want. So the important that I underline great spirit and unexpected experience because God's will could be different from what we want. In the whole dynamic of spiritual exercises, the attitudes should be available through principal foundation, through prayer offering to the eternal King, through the third degree of humility, and of course, contemplation to thin love. The great spirit is strong on pilgrimage and characterize the peculiarity of pilgrimage as spiritual exercises. The second peculiarity is virtuous exercises. Hieronymus Nadal, in his conference Alcala, on various means to help novices, mentioned pilgrimage. Pilgrimage serve to train necessary virtue for the society, the virtue of trusting in God, the virtue of trusting in his divine providence, strong will, and austerity. This third point, pilgrimage as continuing contemplation to attain love. In the spiritual exercises, the contemplation to attain love conclude the meditation and contemplation of 4 weeks. Some of us consider this contemplation as 3rd week because it conceived in the first point, authentic summary of spiritual exercises to call back into memory the gift of creation, redemption, and other gift, particular gift to our shell. The other 3 points serve as introduction to one current life with spiritual character. This the second point that become the door or window to come the sense of pilgrimage as continuing contemplation to attain love. We can also understand that the spiritual exercises that do not end with this contemplation, but should be continued a bit deepened in contemplation that's followed. In this sense, the contemplation to attain love is permanent exercises as a way of life, as a way of being, as a way to pray. And as a way to pray include pilgrimage. In this context, it is understandable to look and to consider pilgrimage as continuation of contemplation to attain love, especially in terms of 4 points to contemplate. I already saw this point. All the gifts that we have already received, God dwelling in the creatures, God laboring and working for me in the world, and God as source of all things and gift. Various experiences and encounters during pilgrimage guide one to the awareness and memory of this point. The next point I mentioned, pilgrimage as spiritual exercises and pilgrimage lead us to the experience of flexible structure method with silent and interior freedom. Flexible structure methods remind us the pedagogy of spiritual exercises on the one hand is very structured, and at the other one, it's quite flexible as one trusts God direct intervention with the exercises. So in this sense, flexibility does not come from being less committed. I repeat, flexibility does not come from being less committed, but by trusting in the possibility of God direct intervention, including by unexpected experience. We could imagine what I mean by structure method: preparatory, prelude, the body of prayer, personal conversation, conclude, and then reflection. Imagining a pilgrimage, we find in it the element of above prayer structure, but pilgrimage has own rhythm. The important is to keep to the aim of the exercises to overcome oneself or to dispose ourselves to God's will could be traced by tradition of asceticism of getting rid of defects that block us from following or being in tune with God's will. Meanwhile, toward the one life, it's mean to accept, including our defect, but we continue to make a journey in the way of discipleship. This flexible structure method is reinforced by silent and interior freedom. So I mention here silent. The following example shows the paradox of silence. Sally mentioned that I live in Rome. Yes, I live in Rome with Scholastic. I'm Indonesian. And in February 26, I made a short pilgrimage from Colegio Jesu a Las Tortas, only 3 hours and a half in the morning with two scholastic. We just silent during long way from Jesu to Las Tortas, and then I wrote to Javier, telling him about the impressive experience of walking in silence. And this experience taught us that the silent is listening experience too many things, inside and outside. So what we did at the time, walking in silence and then celebrate mass, and then went back, that I feel at the moment is there's a kind of connection. One is had a spiritual direction with me, one no, but something grows. This is that we could imagine by silent that's support the idea of flexible structure methods. Regarding interior freedom, it is clear that in pilgrimage, spiritual exercises written follow the actual experience along the way and keep interior freedom as center by which the spiritual exercises oriented to option for Christ and for guidance of the Holy Spirit. For that reason, spiritual exercises in pilgrimage is made flexible by using the structure of method of the spiritual exercises. Considering interior freedom and to have flexibility in the structure method does not reduce the benefit of the structure method and limit the use of structure, but make it possible. Now, as a conclusion, I will show the big experience of friend of mine, Father Rio. Father Rio Morsanto, my provincial, after finishing his term as provincial, make a whole Camino Ignaciano. I only know the only look. Then Father Rio share with me this experience. I asked him, Father, could you tell your experience and the whole of Camino Ignaciano, 27 days on foot? I met him. He told the first week is, I am afraid I can do it. The second week, I want it. The third week, I am willing to do it, and I am happy and ready. Queridos hermanas, hermanos, this is the example that I mentioned, flexible structure method. I do not agree the whole language, but I could understand what Father Rio experienced. Okay, my conclusion come back to this point. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, all of you, for with the rest of your energy still listening me.